Okay, welcome back again to the Education Currency. And what we'll be talking about today is beginning teaching. And as in our current climate, there is a shortage in teaching. So what is it like to begin your career as a teacher? Well, for myself, it's actually quite a new thing. Obviously, I've got previous experience in teaching with running a tuition centre and a martial arts centre. But in the schooling environment, it was a little bit different to what I expected. A lot of positives, a few things that, okay, it is different here, especially the structure of the classroom and the way the students walk in, having to deal with classroom management. And it was quite an eye-opener for me as a beginner teacher, but as well, I'd have the advantage of maturity and being an experienced teacher outside of the high school environment. With yourself, what was your experiences like when you started teaching?
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Kaladikis. And look, from my own perspective, I've now been teaching about nearly 20 years. And yeah, as you've alluded to, the landscape's changed a bit now. There is obviously a requirement, and the government's really pushing to get more people, obviously, into education, and which is a part of what our mission is too, to kind of show you how great education is and how much of a great industry it is to be a part of, you know. But I also want to talk to it not just for the purpose of trying to recruit people and come into it, but also share the positives we felt through our own experience in education. Now, when I first got into the actual game, I was straight out of high school. I went to university and then bang into high schools. And so obviously I was more direct. Your pathway, obviously?
Yeah, mine was a little different. I came from a maths background, and I worked in the banks. Then I run a tuition centre as well as a martial arts centre. And a friend of mine asked me, coming to high school, I was working as a casual, and then within one term, the school offered me a full-time job.
How good is that?
It was... I think the advantage was being able to teach the Extension 2 mathematics helped, and being more mature and being able to have that classroom management gave me the advantage. And that would be, as a beginner teacher, I'd say the one thing you'd have to develop is your classroom management. And the universities, I believe from what I saw, in just doing the educational part, don't really help you out with that. You can read about Piaget and Vygotsky and Skinner and all these great psychologists that put their theories in, but without practice, you could really find yourself in the deep end where you'd be guessing yourself, this is too stressful, is this for me? So I'd recommend, as a beginner teacher, if you are thinking of teaching, get into some sort of teaching role. So it could be in your sport that you like, become a manager somewhere of a team, of a small sporting team, or say if it's English, go into an ESL English, teach people how to speak English, get that communication skill up that you need, especially in the classroom environment, and dealing with the frustrations of actually teaching and having a group in there that you need to communicate to. Because as a beginner teacher, this is where it will make or break you, especially now after 1 year in the actual high school. I've seen teachers coming in on their pracs where you go, okay, you need more experience, not just in the content, in actually your delivery, in the classroom management, in the actual your own posture, your own body dynamics, that when you step into a classroom can actually make or break you. What are your thoughts on this, Chris?
And you've actually highlighted some really good points there too. As I just stated with my beginning, I was high school, uni high school, and didn't really do anything extracurricular to develop myself in that educational capacity other than the pracs I did at university. And then the other thing you mentioned, which was an advantage for you too, that you had that maturity. Yes. And for anyone who knew me early in my teaching career, that might have taken a few years to actually settle in, and they're probably rolling your eyes if they heard that you were listening to a podcast by Chris Kaladikis. But yeah, maturity was very important. You know, you had to switch on and kind of, I am now an educator, and represent yourself as a professional. And yeah, the thing that gets you first, which you highlighted, classroom management, you're walking in there and you're walking into a school which you've either been in before, and in my case, my prac was at my old high school, which made it more of a comfortable environment. But then my first paid job was, doing a block at a school that was not my high school. And then suddenly I'm out of my comfort zone. These children and these teachers do not know me from a bar of soap. And essentially, I'm being tested and I'm being judged. And it comes down to how well I am representing myself. The young people in those classrooms, they're going to push boundaries. And boundaries might not just be behavioural boundaries where they can see what we can get away with. There are going to be students in there who are craving the academics, and they want to see, how much do you know? How well do you know your content? Will I be learning from your classroom strategies? And that could all vary on which way students are going depending on the school you're walking into. But you're going to be tested, and you've got to be on the ball with your classroom management. And then if I go into the next point of, you've got to know your stuff. You've got to know your content. You've got to be reading up and developing strong lesson plans, especially early in your career, because you're going to be tested on, which is why I think they say, and look, it's true based on my experience, your first 2 years is your hardest years in the industry. And that's what we see a lot of turnover in that first 2 to 5 years. Because of that, you're challenged. But if you can get through them, you start pushing ahead. Where are you feeling with that, Rob? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a different experience because as soon as I moved into teaching, at this age, with the level of experience I've got that presence in the room where they went, oh, okay, this is a mature man who is serious and he's serious about teaching you. And the students fell into place for me in a way that was even better than I expected. But the school I'm teaching at, they're an all-boys school, and being a male, it actually did give me that advantage compared to the other females, where they have to work a lot harder in getting that same level of attention that I would get from the actual male boys. So one thing I would recommend, if you're a young male teacher, it would be to your advantage if you first went to an all-male school. And if you're a young female teacher, it would be to your advantage if you went to an all-female school. Build your experience up from there and then change into co-ed, change into a different school. But putting yourself in an environment where it is easier for you would set you up for a higher chance of success. And that's what I felt coming into this school. The other thing is absolutely knowing your content. You're going to be tested 2 ways. One, you're first going to be tested by your classroom management, and we'll do a whole topic on classroom management. And that's the first way you're going to be tested. And if you don't have the classroom management, then you won't be able to do the second thing you'll be tested on is your content. So you will either lose the kids first through your classroom management, and then the second thing is the kids that do want to learn, is your content relevant and do you know your stuff? Just like you said, preparation is everything. Coming from a maths background, if you are going through your mathematics degree, really get on top of your advanced extension 1 and extension 2 content. If you want to be a maths teacher, having those topics down pat will give you the most advantage when applying for a job. And while you're at university, you should have the curriculum you'll be teaching with what the university is teaching you. Now, obviously, the university subjects will go far beyond what you'll be teaching, but do start to prepare your notes even from university. From a maths background, if you do that early, you stepping into a class will have such an advantage. Your advanced notes will be ready, your extension 1, extension 2 notes would be ready, and then obviously work your way down from there. And there is nothing better than asking more experienced teachers. With myself, the hardest thing I found was the more disadvantaged classes. I was given one class like that, and that class was the one where I felt panicked the most. But the maths department actually helped me out immensely. They gave me worksheets. They gave me their feedback on what they had done in the past, on what worked, what didn't work. And I put these strategies into place, and it was a lot better than I expected, thanks to the cohort around me and the teachers that I had that influenced me and mentored me through my first year.
Yeah. And I actually want to talk to both your points on what you just said there, Rob. Going back to actually what you said in relation to your first schools as well, another recommendation I would say to new teachers too is stick to what you know as your first school. Like I said, my final prac was at my old high school, and I'm actually working at my old high school now too. And I've got to say, and I've got to also acknowledge and thank that I still feel looked after by my old teachers. They're still, they're obviously very proud of how my career has progressed, but they still make an effort to watch out for me, give recommendations, give advice, and that support, you've got to be grateful for. And that's obviously led to a lot of positivity, obviously early in my career, and obviously still in my career, that I can still work with those teachers in that capacity and they're still supporting. In saying that though, my first full-time job wasn't at my this current school. And I still got that great mentorship. So although that was a great scenario, like you said, I worked at a school similar to my context, very similar to my high school as my first full-time job. And those teachers, they adopted me, they took me under their wing, and I had some great mentors at that school too that really helped me. So if I was going to highlight another key point of what you want to be striving for is that mentorship and collaboration in the school you're at. You're working with different departments. You're not just sticking within your faculty. You're listening to those teachers who have experience. And if it's a person that's in a role that you might see as a part of your career progression, so they're a year coordinator, or the people that I looked up to early in my career with ICT as a background, we had e-learning coordinators, and I looked at them as well as my faculty coordinator. I really looked to them as mentors in my first full-time job in that role. And the thing that I think made them very supportive of me, and I've really got to push this with new teachers, is showing that you're listening and you're learning and you're trying your best to acknowledge what they're saying to you. If I have seen in my career, and I've seen obviously teachers do very well in their schools, and I've seen teachers who feel they're not going and getting the career progression that they would like in their school, a key element is a mentor teacher, someone you look up to, an experienced staff member, they're going to give you advice. If they give you advice and you listen to it and they can see you're trying to do it, they'll give you more advice. But if they give you advice and they can kind of see you're not really listening to it, they're probably not going to give you more advice. And that is a key area here. You've got to kind of show these experienced teachers, and if you respect them, that you're listening, that you're willing to learn from the advice that they have. And I think that's how the system works efficiently. We've got to pay that respect to who these experienced teachers are, these successful teachers are, and show we're willing to follow what we learn. Yep, give them your input. You've got the new age education, you've got the new age strategies, you've got the ideas about IT that's more fresher than what they knew. Feel free to do that, but show that you're respecting them and learning from them. And then you'll get that support through your collaboration, and you'll get that career progression. That you got to, I won't say play the game, because it's not a game, it's respect and paying your dues. But I think that's something you've done, Rob. You're very open about these teachers. They've taken you under their wing, and already even though you've got this years of experience and knowledge under you, you're still willing to go with it.
Oh, they saw my experience, and they actually steered me with that. So they got the best out of me with my experience, with actually helping me out with the things that I didn't know and I was stuck on. And I'm very fortunate to be working there, to be part of such a great environment that we have there. And that made all the difference for me, to be able to do the years that I've been practicing, bring it out into the school. It wasn't just my maturity and my level of experience. It was having that support network at the school. And actually, like you said, opening yourself up to be able to receive that support network. Now, it's a lot easier done when you're 50 years old and you have lived your life in a certain way, especially outside of the schooling environment where I've been running these businesses. So I'm a lot more open to that. But if you're a young 23, 24-year-old where you've gone from high school, university, back to high school, you're only 5 or 6 years older than the people that you're trying to teach. So having that older teacher in there will show you things that you yourself cannot see. And actually, they did show me things that I myself couldn't see. Even though I have been teaching and tutoring for 30 years, and I've got the experience of being able to present on a whiteboard and the material, but it was still very different in a high school. So this is the one thing that beginning teachers need to understand is, okay, are you susceptible to this? You're not walking in there young and cocky know-it-all, and then all of a sudden you're finding yourself drowning and no one's there to help you. Well, you got to think back, like you said, when have they offered you help and when have you shut it down? And this is what we want to avoid, especially in this teaching crisis, where it's hard enough to get teachers in, let alone you've got students who are academic enough to teach, but then we'd lose them through what you were mentioning, not opening themselves up to mentoring. And being in a professional environment, mentors do present themselves, but are you mentally ready for that? Not just in a nice way, are you mentally ready for the criticism? And that was one thing that I actually did get quite a fair bit of, and I was quite fortunate enough.
Your department's very happy to criticise you.
Oh, it was on.
And criticise everyone, mate.
It was good because it's a group of us, we're around the same age, and I remember my head coordinator, every time she'd say, Robert, we need to have a chat. And I'd be like, oh God, not another chat. Okay, here we go. And it was quite good. And in all due respect to her, the best thing she did for me was, I asked her, okay, can you just sit at the back of the classroom and give me a bunch of notes? Just quietly sit at the back. And I got her to do this. She sat at the back of the classroom. She gave me a whole bunch of notes, everything she thought I did positive, everything she thought that, okay, I needed to change. And I actually stuck it up where I could see it and read it. And I'd pick one point up, okay, she said in a classroom environment, okay, you need to walk around a little more. Okay, that was one note. Okay, this lesson, I'll make a mental note of that. That helped me a lot more than I'd say the lectures at university. The lectures at university gave me groundwork on theories and psychologists. I understood why kids were doing the things they were doing, but having my coordinator sit at the back of the classroom, give me those positive notes that I could be aware of, yes, this is what I'm doing well, and then giving me that extra feedback on things that I needed to improve, just made the job a lot easier. It was one of those things where I went, okay, great, this is actually working a lot better than I thought. And there's nothing more successful than a person giving you their 20, 30 years of experience right on a plate in front of you, just for you to grab.
Yeah, and obviously that support, it's just paramount for that success, for you to feel like you're comfortable within that school. There's two contexts as well that I really want to acknowledge for new teachers as well. And one of them kind of pertains to kind of how my career started, and one pertains kind of how your career started. When I started teaching, all right, and I might even go back to, once again, when I was at prac, that once again, we've said it already a few times, high school, uni, high school. I'd be at university doing my final prac, but obviously I'm not getting paid for my final prac, so I'm still working part-time at Big W. I'm working at Big W with the students I'm teaching. And so there's already that kind of battle that you're working and teaching at the same times, and that can also then bleed into you haven't got your first full-time yet when you start teaching, so you still need to maintain part-time work, and that can sometimes also be very hard for new teachers. That balance of when's it time to leave my part-time job and when I have that job security there, and then kind of, the circles you're in with both and the student influence there. That can be a challenge because there's so much uncertainty, and that means a very high workload, and then we're saying points like know your content and plan your lessons and all that, but you're still trying to make ends meet and work that. So I think that needs to be acknowledged as well. But then I also want to acknowledge kind of the scenario now where there is that teacher shortage and that young teachers are now getting put in full-time roles rather quickly. And I believe there's a challenge there as well, because these teachers are fresh out of uni. As you said, they've been learning from lecturers, which is obviously excellent. They're learning their content. They've done a few pracs, so they've got a bit of that real-world feeling up in the classroom. But then they're going into schools where they're short teachers and they are thrown in the classrooms into large classes that they need to manage. But yet they are fresh out, and that is a major challenge that needs to be acknowledged about new teachers as well, and sometimes a factor to their burnout. Yes. All right, being put into these classrooms, and it's like pretty much go for it. There might not be staff at these schools to mentor you because there just aren't staff there. And that's a challenge we need to support as well. How do we support teachers there? And really, that's where I want to give a few tips, that we can focus on. If you're going to say you're a teacher in this situation, you've been put in, whether you're straight out of uni or whether you've come as a mature age student with a bit of experience. And that's another factor too, mature age students. we sometimes think, yep, they've worked in industry, they'll be fine, they know their content. But there can be quite a bit of a jump in their training in the context of going to a classroom. They can't be forgotten when they go in there too. What are some tips we can give both new teachers and mature age going into the classroom?
Either way, fake it till you make it. You are the teacher.
Still am.
Head up, shoulders up, you walk in there confident. You own the classroom.
We don't all look like you, Rob. We're not all walk in a room like that, mate.
Fake it. Pretend you've got a bunch of books on your head and you're balancing them as you walk in. There's nothing worse than slouch body language when you're moving into a room. Makes no difference of structurally what you look like. Having that confidence, that presence, even when you're nervous, as a beginner teacher, is everything. Practice it in the mirror. Shoulders back, stand straight, have that eye contact with someone. Even practice having that eye contact with yourself. Have it with family members. Sit a family member down in a chair and go, how many times do I have to tell you this? Then practice it again. Eye contact, hand out, look, that's enough. Please, back to work. And just practice it and practice it and practice it. Have these things, few things that you can practice down pat. And remember, it will be nerve-wracking. It will not be easy. But if you can have that first structure about you, practice it, it will come out in your actual delivery and your voice tone, and then the kids will fall into place. That first impression of you will make or break you. And they're young, year 7s, year 8s, year 9s. As much as we'd like to change their lives, and we do put 100% effort in, do know if there's any cracks, they are coming in to break them as fast as they can open. This is something that you have to understand as a teacher. And at times the students can seem relentless, but then have that critical reflection back. Okay, what did I do?
Yes.
What can I do different? And run any scenario that you may have struggled with a more experienced teacher, as I have the last year. Yeah. That would be my advice.
And that first impression, like you said, is so important to represent yourself as a professional. And then, look, you've gone to the classroom, you've done that, and we're moving to the lessons forward. If I was going to then build upon that, if you're going to be successful with a class, and like I said, I know that we're busy, you're trying to manage a part-time job, you could be doing a number of other things outside of school early in career until you feel you've got that job security and that you've secured yourself. My second goal would be, it's rapport with the students. And obviously, my background is in well-being. If you can show the students that you genuinely care about them, they are going to be more forgiving of the mistakes we make. And we all make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect when you walk into a classroom for the first time. 20 years in, you're still going to be making mistakes left, right, and center, okay? We're not all infallible. But if the students genuinely believe you've got their best interests at heart, you're trying your best, and they can see that, you're really trying to get your stuff together, you're a human being trying to educate them, which is why they're there in the classroom, they'll be more forgiving. That does mean that you've still got to maintain a professional relationship with the students at all times, okay? But they can see that they know you're there for them. And I think that will help you out. Isn't that right, Rob?
Oh, absolutely. You have to listen to the students. They talk. When a student talks, you have my undivided attention. Yes, I want to hear what you have to say. Whether it be good, whether it be bad. If they are trying to be cheeky and funny, you can shut that down and explain to them, okay, is this an appropriate question or not? But you have to have that attention to detail and be able to listen. And I found myself, when I may have been a little harsh with a kid, I've pulled them off to the side, explained to me a story, what happened, and I've apologized. Like, look, from my perspective, this is what it came across. Okay, I realize now, okay, it wasn't the way it was. Look, I'm sorry, but can we just both do things a little differently now? And they are super responsive to that. Then they see you that you're making an effort and I'm opening the door for you to make that same effort. And that has worked really, really well for myself. To be able to acknowledge, okay, if I did go a little bit too much in my case, I can pull it back, apologize to the kid, show them from my perspective what that situation looks like, and then get them to explain it back to me. And then if need be, look, I'm really sorry for that situation. Okay, I'll be more careful next time. And then I get them to give me feedback on that. And it's usually, oh, sorry, sir. Yeah, okay, we're good. Great, fine. And that has helped me a lot. But like I said, my situation is a little bit different. I think with young teachers coming in, again, you will feel frustrated. Sometimes you'll be gulping it in. I have to take this class. That's not an easy class to take. But having someone like yourself that has been in the job for a few decades give you those 1 or 2 tips will make or break you.
And like you said, with that, those conversations with the young people too and all that, and they are seeking knowledge, especially in high school years. They're seeking guidance. They're seeking knowledge. Being a young teacher too, they usually connect with you more because you're closer to their age and they really look up to you there. In that essence, that can sometimes be the most rewarding part of the job, that these young people, they're seeking the knowledge of you. They see you as a role model. That's the fulfillment of our industry, that if you do this stuff right, that's going to be your rewards. I know we'd all love to be making $1 million. And
you won't do it in teaching.
It's probably not going to happen in teaching. But no. The rewards, obviously, and we're anti that kind of logic of, all rewards are financial. It's about that you're giving back to your community, and you're seeing young people grow. And then obviously, hopefully by the end of where they are in education, going on to great things themselves and achieving their dreams.
Oh, absolutely. You grow with them.
Yeah.
That's what I found myself being outside of a schooling environment with the tuition center and my martial arts center. I actually grow with the students together. Every 10 years, you should be a different teacher to what you were previously. As your mistakes, your positives, your negatives, etc., you have to grow as a human. And that requires that critical self-reflection as well as positive self-reflection. Having what you do well in a bag, and then what you feel, everyone intuitively knows, okay, this is where I'm lacking, and having that support network that we are so fortunate to have where we work, helping us get through that. Okay, from actually going from a school to a school to a school, what was your biggest hurdle stepping into a teaching environment?
Look, when I got into the classroom and pretty much it's like, this teacher's left. I did my first block at a school. The teacher just left. I went into that job. I didn't really have anyone in that first job that I got. It was a 6-month position to guide me in that first scenario. So there were some challenges there. It was a different context back then. It was very hard to get your first job 20 years ago that it was now. So getting my content down pat was a first one for me. That was my initial challenge there. Secondly, my challenge was obviously winning over the students. It was not a school that I was used to in my first position. And so I had to show these students that I cared about them and that I knew my stuff and was willing to teach them, but they wanted to know more about me. And I was trying my best to be as professional as I can. I didn't want to give too much away about myself. So I was getting some behavioural issues coming, particularly from years 9 and 10. That's always going to be a pattern. And I think that's one thing I want to acknowledge for young teachers out there now too. Your years 9 and 10 classes, they challenge everyone. Wherever you are in your career, if you're new, they're going to challenge you. If I left the school I was out today and I went to a new school, guaranteed year 9 and 10 are going to challenge me to see who I am and what I'm made of. So that challenge is always going to happen. So knowing my content, my classroom management would have been my first 2 challenges coming out. And just, my age. Your age is almost working against you because you're so close to them in age. And that's one thing you got to show them. I'm a professional. And that's something you've got to have at the forefront. If you want to be taken seriously in teaching, you've got to be a professional. And there's many aspects to that. How you present yourself, the language you use in class. All right, I'm a TAS teacher, but when I'm at work, I always tie on, button-up shirt. I want to be seen as a professional, And students see that when he walks around the school, that's a guy that looks like he knows what he's doing. Not even just on the students' front, but on the parents' front. They come in out of the school too. They're having an interview with me, or they see me for the first time in the yard. He looks like he's a professional. So professional dress, hygiene, shaving, all of that. We've spoken about in a previous podcast too, healthy lifestyle choices. Students are all looking at the full package. But they were all things I had to get on top of very early in my career, I believe, to get on top of them. What about yourself, Rob?
Mine was a bit different. In all honesty, how far can I go with the discipline? This was a bit of a shock to me. You can overwhelm the classroom where, okay, this is getting a bit too much. So I had a few of the support teachers give me feedback on that. I come from a martial arts background, in a tuition background. I've got that experience where I talk, people generally listen. If they don't listen, they leave. That's fine. It comes to a more private sort of setting. And my biggest challenge was, well, what happens when they don't listen? How far can the discipline go? Can you overwhelm the students with your actual physical presence? And this was something that was a little bit of a learning curve. My biggest thing, year 7s came in, they wrote me, I think I got about 5 letters on why the kids couldn't do their homework from their parents. And I read them, I scrunched them, and frustrated, I threw them in the bin. You do not do that as a teacher.
No, we like to keep documentation.
Yes. I didn't realize that I was frustrated. Okay, I prepared all this work. I really got the content out, and there are excuses from the parents on a Sunday why the student couldn't do their homework. And it wasn't the parents' fault because the actual student didn't explain the procedure of the way we did things. We do work on a Monday, I'll give you a chance to do it at home, we check it on a Tuesday, we go through it on a Wednesday, I'll give you more work, and then I look over it all on back again on the Monday. And obviously, kids being kids didn't bring it across to the parents, turning around and saying, well, I couldn't do my homework because we went out to dinner. And it wasn't a good look just scrunching it up and throwing it in the bin in front of them, where my coordinator said, okay, we're going to get a lot of emails now with a lot of problems. So I had to reel a few things in to the point of, okay, this is different. And it was, again, watching the way other teachers do it, watching the way they would walk in and discipline and actually control the classroom really helped me a lot. So my one was more of a behavioral issue on the other end of the scale, like toning it down to actually, so you can communicate across. You don't come across like a tidal wave and overwhelm them. They are kids at the end of the day. And it was a great learning curve. Yeah. It was an absolute learning curve for me, which I thoroughly enjoyed and looking forward to again this year.
Yeah, and you highlighted a very key point there, that of discipline. And we've spoken about classroom management, but then with discipline, yes, finding that way, it's such a large variation of what discipline could be. I still remember back early in my career, you think, well, discipline, is that getting in front of the students, and if they're not listening, you yell at them and you start giving out punitive punishments, and that's how you get them to listen to you. But then obviously we start learning very early on, that's not going to be a very successful way of conducting discipline. We work at a very good school now, and I have different discipline plans for the different year groups I teach. Some still involve some punitive measures in that, okay, we're in a tech class, a student's mucking around, well, they're going to be sent outside because their behaviour could be dangerous or they're just not listening. They're going to write lines outside. Early in my career, I used to then get them to finish the lines and then I rip them up in front of them when they finish and go, okay, head back in the classroom, just to teach them not to do that again. But still, the lines are good were for reinforcing in a very basic way that they understood what they did wrong. And it kind of brings us this notion of restorative justice too. A student needs to know what they did wrong in relation to discipline so that they don't do something again. With my more senior levels, and this is something you mentioned also just recently, a discussion can go a long way. It can still be restorative justice without a punitive measure. Talking to the student, okay, we're outside the class right now, or class is finished, the rest of the class is left. And that's key too. You don't want to be disciplining students in front of their peers for multiple reasons. It's either going to make them feel like they need to step up and put on a show in front of their peers, or it could be that you're going to disgrace them in front of their peers, which is going to lead to further issues with you and the student. You're going to have that student, you can have a peer around when you speak to them if you don't feel comfortable doing it on your own. You can say, meet me at the staff room at lunch and talk to them there. But when you speak to the student, that's where you can also put restorative justice in place through a conversation, which I would recommend with more of your older students, your senior students. What is restorative justice? Well, it's talking through what happened. Why are you here right now? Why did I feel like I had to talk to you in class? Why did I feel like I had to remove you from that class for a time period? Where did you go wrong? How did that affect the flow of the class? How did that affect both your learning and your peers' learning? How did that affect my teaching to the class, which the class is there for? These are all notions of restorative justice. So the student can actually think about what they're doing and see the impact that they have on themselves, on you as a teacher, and on your class as a whole, and potentially, depending on the context, the wider community, and where they could change their behavior to support that. Sometimes when you bring in that bigger picture approach, hopefully then the student can say, all right, this is why my behavior was incorrect. But from a well-being aspect, that is key. Students need to know where they're going wrong. Otherwise, they're not learning from where they went wrong. They're not learning from punitive measures, but they are growing and they're going on.
Absolutely. And after anything that's happened, next day is a fresh day.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. Watch your body language, watch your behavior, not to naturally, it's him again or her again. You cannot do this. So no matter what's happened in the classroom, no matter what discipline has happened, no matter what issues have happened, there's nothing personal the next day. Walk in, take a seat, we begin to learn again.
And you welcome them back into the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's almost as if there was nothing personal in it. I believe there's nothing more detrimental to a student than thinking this teacher personally has it out for me. And we need to really monitor and watch ourselves.
Yeah, and look, and I will say too, there are certain things that happen in the school. You've got to know your school policy, procedure, and rules where you will have to follow things. Like while I've said restorative justice is great, there will be times you'll use restorative justice, but as per your school's policy and procedure, you still got to give it attention. You still got to let your coordinators know. You still potentially have to let assistant principals know, depending on what the incident with the student was. This could lead to a suspension. All of that could happen. So you've got to still be in line with your classroom management, with what the school rules are. But then once that punitive reinforcement has occurred, you still welcome them back into the classroom.
That's right.
They are still have paid their dues, and it's business as usual.
That's right. It's the students know. I've even mentioned it to students where they've gotten out of hand. I've given them a detention. They're not happy about it, and then I ask them, "What do you think my job is here? What do you think I am doing here for you? I'm trying to teach you. I'm trying to bring this information across to you. Now, what do you think should happen?" And more, they know. Nothing personal. But then again, the next day, great. Hi, how are you? Take a seat. How's your day been? You can even just open up with a nice conversation and then listen to what they say. And that should set the tone for that student. Okay, this teacher's serious. He's serious here to teach me. Doesn't hate me in any way, shape and form, but there's a certain line I need to toe, and they will test you. They will test where that line is. Just understand that. That's the nature of the job. And once you've got these things down pat, it is the most rewarding profession. Just to make sure, as a young beginner teacher, you just don't get drowned into a tidal wave where we actually see you leave the profession. It's hard enough getting people into the profession now, then let alone those that do come and actually leave. And that, I think, what would you say, especially with the teacher shortage crisis now, if you could, from your experience watching prac teachers coming in, if you could pick one thing about them that you would improve on all of them in general, what would you say?
Look, I won't say there's one. I won't say one because I've seen a variety of prac teachers come in. But I will summarise in some points.
Yeah.
What I would be giving recommendations is to new teachers when coming in. First and foremost, and we've mentioned it multiple times today, build relationships with the staff and the students, right? Your rapport and the way you get along with everyone in your community is everything, because that will be your support network at work. All right, so relationships is key. Secondly, you said it right from the beginning, classroom management. You've got to walk into the class, represent yourself as a professional. Students will respect you, but then once you've got that respect too, work on understanding who these students are and let them know who you are, and that will make a very positive classroom atmosphere. Thirdly, it will be tough early in the career, but you've got to know your stuff, your planning and organisation, your lesson plans, know your content. Through knowing your content, you will also win on the respect of your peers and the students in there. And then obviously that'll help you grow as a teacher too. Schools are complex places. Embrace flexibility too. You're going to have things coming up at school where you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to change depending on your school circumstance. So be ready for that as well. And if I could say one other thing that we've mentioned in previous podcasts too that needs to be said here, that maintenance of a work-life balance. Okay, that you're going to work, your first few years are going to be your hardest, they're going to be very stressful, but you are doing those things that we've mentioned about having a healthy lifestyle balance. You're staying hydrated, you're eating healthy, you're being active, you're doing things outside of school to support your well-being, all of that. These would be the recommendations I would be giving for new teachers based on what I've seen them all doing coming to it. And if I give one final point, and you said it already yourself, we're going to all make mistakes. You're going to make them early in your career. You're going to make them where you're at, where we are right now.
You make them late as well.
Yeah, you're going to be doing it too. But if you've got all these other things set up, students and your peers will be forgiving and they'll understand you because rapport and relationships are key.
Absolutely. And this is why we've come up with this podcast, to develop ourselves and hopefully get you through the teaching process as well.
Because you're not alone. We're all in it together, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for
Great.
listening today, guys.
Thank you,
I'm Chris
guys.
Kalodikis.
I'm Robert Namoski.
Take care.
See you.